بابا تمہارے بعد بابا غریب بیٹی کی غربت تو دیکھ لو، امت نے حق نہیں دیا بنت رسول کو، یہ اجر پا رہی ہوں میں، یہ اجر پا رہی ہوں میں، بابا تمہارے بعد صدمے اٹھا رہی ہوں میں، بابا تمہارے بعد دربار جا رہی ہوں میں، بابا تمہارے بعد صدمے اٹھا رہی ہوں میں، بابا تمہارے بعد بر محمد وآل محمد صلوات اللہ سورہ فاتحہ۔ اور محمد وآل محمد صلوات اللہم صلی علی وآل بیمار جب کہ احمد مختار ہو گئے، بیمار جب کہ احمد مختار ہو گئے، دشمن زیادہ در پائے آزار ہو گئے، زہر ستم سے موت کے آثار ہو گئے، صدمے اٹھا کے جینے سے بیزار ہو گئے، صدمے اٹھا کے جینے سے بیزار ہو، غل تھا جہاں سے نائب داور کا کچھ ہے، افسوس سوء خلد پیمبر کا کچھ ہے، افسوس سوء خلد پیمبر کا کچھ ہے، شفقت سے فاطمہ کو بلایا رسول نے، سمجھا کے اپنے پاس بٹھایا رسول نے، جب دامن بطول کو پایا رسول نے، بستر کے بدلے اس کو بچھایا رسول نے، بستر کے بدلے اس کو بچھایا رسول نے، سر رکھ کے اپنا زانوے دختر پہ سو حسن اور حسین کو لپٹایا اپنے سینے سے، ہر نور عین کو نانا کے غم میں کھویا نواسوں نے چین کو، رو رو کے یہ سنایا شاہ مشرقین کو، رو رو کے یہ سنایا شاہ مشرقین کو۔ افسوس آج داغے جدائی دکھاؤگے، سنتے ہیں غم یہ سب سے غمیں چھوڑ جاؤ گے، سنتے ہیں غم یہ سب سے غمیں چھوڑ جاؤ گے، سر پیٹ پیٹ رونے لگی ہائے فاطمہ، بولی کہ کس طرح نا علم تھا اے فاطمہ، جو حال دل ہے کس سے وہ دورا اے فاطمہ، افسوس اپنے باپ سے چھٹ جائے فاطمہ، افسوس اپنے باپ سے چھٹ جائے فاطمہ، اس غم سے آس ٹوٹے گئی دل ملول کے، آفت میں مبتلا ہوئی بیٹی رسول کی، آفت میں مبتلا ہوئی بیٹی رسول کی، بیمار جب کے احمد پر محمد و آل محمد صلوات۔ بر محمد و آل محمد صلوات۔ اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد، بار دیگر بآواز بلند صلوات۔ اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل مومنین مومنات، السلام علیکم۔ Just a few quick announcements and reminders. The first one regarding our series of programs with guest speaker Maulana Sayyid Abbas Razavian. The program will continue for 2 nights, tonight and tomorrow night. Please note that tomorrow night's program will begin with Namaz-e-Maghribain ba Jamaat at 7:20 p.m., followed by Sos Khani, Majlis, and then Noha Khani by guest reciter Janab Ali Zia Rizvi. Please note the time change because tomorrow's program will begin earlier and end earlier as well. Lastly, if I can request all of you to recite Surah Fatiha and Surah Ikhlas for all the marhumeen on the Jafaria Memorial Board, for all the marhumeen of everyone in attendance tonight, and for all the marhumeen of tonight's sponsors. One quick announcement that I forgot. Please note that tomorrow will be the annual Sunday School Majlis that takes place at 12:50 p.m. It will also be recited by Maulana Abbas Razavian, and that Majlis is open to the entire community. So if you would like to join and show your support to the Sunday School students, you can join at tomorrow's Majlis. Par Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Please join me in inviting our guest speaker, Maulana Abbas Razavian, up to the mimbar with the loudest of your salawats upon Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم إلى قيام يوم الدين. Respected brothers, respected sisters, أعظم الله أجوركم. May Allah reward you for your grief, for the calamity of the passing away of the best of God's creation. The 28th of Safar is a tragic night for us as Muslims, as followers of Ahlul Bayt, because we understand that, one, it is the cease of revelation. When other prophets pass away, there's another prophet that's going to come. But when our prophet, Prophet Muhammad, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa passes away, this is the end to revelation. This is what Imam Ali alayhi salam says in Nahjul Balagh. And also, it's the start of a different time period for Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. The time of the Prophet, Ahlul Bayt were respected by all. We'll mention this. Can you believe at that time, 1400 years ago, Rasulullah, whenever, this is Sahih Tirmidhi, not Shia sources, it's Sahih Tirmidhi. Whenever Rasulullah would see his daughter Fatima alayhi salam, he would stand up, kiss her, and offer her his own seat, the seat of prophethood. Then, after he passes away, what did they do to Lady Fatima? Did he not do this all the time? What did they do to Mawla Ali alayhi salam? So for us, there's two tragedies. One is the passing away of Rasulullah. The other is another page in the history of Islam and Muslimin. Did they begin to pan the hadith of the Prophet? The same Muslimin that said we're your followers, they put a ban. They call this the hadith ban. The hadith of Rasulullah was banned for about 90, 100 years was banned. Not allowed to be taught. And people that had history of being a previous Jew or previous Christian, like Ka'b al-Ahbar and Tamim al-Dari, begin to teach and do tafsir of Quran, bringing in Isra'iliyat, meaning distorted stories from the Bible, from the Torah into Islam. This is the tragedy that we face today. When you look at the life of the Prophet, I want to ask you this question. We remember him. His name is the most popular name today when the child is born. Why do we love him so much? Why are we so attached to him? One of the reasons is this, if I ask you, is this verse. What do we understand from this verse of Quran? 3:159. I think there's just still a little echo. If we can fix it a little bit, I apologize. فَبِمَا رَحْمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ لِنْتَ لَهُمْ. 3:159. Remember this verse about Rasulullah in the Quran. It's a beautiful verse. So by mercy of God, O Muhammad, you were lenient with them. فَبِمَا رَحْمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ لِنْتَ لَهُمْ. Lint is from layin, to be nice. Actually, it's under here, lenient and layin almost sound like the same word. The Arabic and English sound like the same thing. It says, from the rahmat of God, you were mercy upon them. You were lenient upon them. So first of all, from this verse, we understand that the akhlaq of Rasulullah, the behavior that he had, that he gathered everybody, is first of all from God. Because Allah, when he sends somebody, he's going to send the kindness and most merciful to go upon the people. وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَظًّا. And if you were rude, sometimes a person might get frustrated. You're dealing with a group of polytheist Arabs that were in the age of ignorance. If we were there and we had such a mission, we would lose our minds with them. We would probably say a nice couple of maybe vulgar words to them. Probably at that time, they wouldn't understand. One of the things that they would do, and you even have in history this, that they would make an idol. They would make an idol out of halwa. I don't know, in here, do you have halwa or not? You have this dessert or no, halwa? Halwa is like, you make with sweet, it's like a dessert. They would make a dessert with halwa. Ayatollah Wahid Khorasani says this. This is the age they had. They would worship this idol till noontime. From the beginning, from Fajr to noontime, they would worship it. After noon, they would become hungry and they would eat the idol. They would eat it. You're dealing with such a time period. And he was not harsh in speech with them. And it says, غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ. If you were harsh in speech, if you're rude and harsh in heart, لَنْفَضُّ مِنْ حَوْلِكَ. They would run away from you. So obviously it's the rahmah and mercy and disposition of Rasulullah that is unparalleled, that today we are here crying for him 1400 years ago in a completely different continent. So it is his mercy. This is the subject of tonight's speech, is the mercy of Rasulullah, the kindness of Rasulullah, but at the same time, the firmness of Rasulullah. See, many people are very kind. They're very compassionate, but it causes people to run over them. It causes them to be ineffective. Because if you always allow them, like children, and we'll mention this if we have time, like parenting, that they give the green light for everything and they never want to break the kid's heart, well, that child will never reach its full potential because you cannot have any instructions or limits with that child. But Rasulullah was a perfect balance of kindness and rahmah, but at the same time firmness. There are places where Islam is very firm and does not change. Islam is a beautiful religion that we have very important red lights that we could never pass. And Rasulullah, is how kind he was, he wouldn't allow society under his watch to pass these red lights. One of the cases you see that people loved Rasulullah so much. You had the story of Thuban. Thuban was a person, he loved to see Rasulullah. Sometimes when I hear these stories, I become jealous because we're at the time of the ghaibat of Imam Zaman. We can't see the Imam with our eyes right now. We benefit from him. But Thuban would see Rasulullah all the time. Day and night he would see Rasulullah all the time. And every time he wouldn't see him, he would be upset. Imagine in this haqq of what he's doing, because he's seeing the most beautiful, the best of God's creation. Of course he would love him. When we see one person with beautiful characteristics, how much do we love them? Now imagine Rasulullah. So anytime he would not see him, he would be sad. So finally one day he comes to Rasulullah and he is actually very upset today. And the Prophet in the story says, why are you upset? He says that, you know what, when I die, If I go to heaven, I won't be able to see you because your position will be very high and my position will be medium, for example. Because heaven, as the hadith has 1,000, or the sayings, 1,000, 6,000, the amount of verses that we have in the Quran are the amount of positions in heaven, different stages. So obviously Rasulullah will be a'la al-illiyin, in the highest of positions. But Thuban is wondering, well, I'm not going to be at the position of the Prophet of Islam. So I'm worried. If I go to heaven, I will not see you anymore. Today, in this life, I see you every day. But there I won't be able to see you. And then if I go to hell, for sure I will not see you if I go to hell. So regardless, I can only see you in this world. And then this verse comes for Thuban. This is how much he loved Rasulullah. Then this verse comes for him. وَمَنْ يُطِعِ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ فَأُولَٰئِكَ مَا الَّذِينَ أَنْعَمَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِمْ مِنَ النَّبِيِّينَ وَالصِّدِّيقِينَ وَالشُّهَدَاءِ وَالصَّالِحِينَ وَحَسُنَ أُولَٰئِكَ رَفِيقًا. One who obeys God and the messenger is the prophets, is the friend of the prophets. So whoever obeys Allah, whoever obeys the Rasul, they are the ones that will be ma'a, those that are siddiqeen, those that are nabiyeen, those that are salihin, those that Allah has an'am Allah, that those who Allah has blessed. If somebody, this verse comes, if he obeys Rasulullah, if he obeys Allah, he will be with them. So then Thuban and the companions became very happy, because if you obey and follow the message, then you'll be with them. You'll have ma'iyah. This is an important note for us while we're talking. One of the great scholars by the name of Imam Musa Sadr, that moved from Iran to Lebanon and gathered the Shia. And the Shia loved him in Lebanon. And necessarily he didn't speak Arabic with the best lahja or accent. He had an Iranian Farsi accent. But he spoke it properly. He knew, how to speak Fasih Arabic, but he didn't even have the accent. But the Lebanese loved Imam Musa. So today they're wondering where he is, because his last meeting was in Libya. They don't know, after they took care of Gaddafi and he left and he was killed. Gaddafi, they're wondering still where he is today. But Imam Musa says something very interesting. He says this, don't be like in Arabic. He says, don't be like those that cries for Imam Hussein but kills Imam Hussein. Don't be like those that cry for Imam Hussein but kills. He says, are you one of those that cries for Imam Hussein but kills Imam Hussein? He says, who are those that cry for Imam Hussein but kills Imam Hussein? He says, those that kill the message of Imam Hussein. Those that kill the message of Imam Hussein. Those that kill what Imam Hussein stood for. Those that kill Imam Hussein, what did he stand for? He fought against injustice. He fought against the Zalimeen. When those that cry for Imam Hussein ally themselves, they have a pact with the Zalimeen, then they have killed the message of Imam Hussein. When a person does not follow the message of Tawheed, the message of Islam, they have killed the message of Imam Hussein. So therefore, in the same way, we learn from this hadith, from this story, that Thuban wanted to become with Rasulullah, and there is, actually the Quran mentions that this is from the grace of God, that if we were to obey Rasulullah and Allah, then we will be with them in the hereafter. Please recite salat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Let's look at other examples of the life of Rasulullah in terms of mercy and rahmah. Our Prophet was so merciful, was so humble, that we have in Makarim al-Akhlaq, a person came to Rasulullah, yukallimuhu fa'ura'id. He came to Rasulullah, and this is the time, you imagine, he's in Medina, he's in charge, he has power. But the person was shaking. You become nervous. You're meeting Rasulullah, he was shaking. And Rasulullah, from his humbleness, mentions to him, the Prophet, فَقَالَ هَوِّنْ عَلَيْكَ. Take ease. فَلَسْتُ بِمَلِكٍ. Take ease, be comfortable. I am not a king. I'm not a king that you have to be afraid of me. Be at ease, be at ease. Don't be nervous when you're with me. To make him feel comfortable speaking with Rasulullah. This is the mercy of Rasulullah. In the same way, in the battle of Uhud, the messenger of Allah was injured. His tooth cracked, face bloody. And they asked him to curse the people, just how Prophet Nuh alayhi salam cursed the people after many years. But Rasulullah mentioned that he may make dua for them. He said, forgive them, for surely my people do not know. Forgive them, do not have adab come to them, for surely they do not know. This is another case of mercy of Rasulullah. When finally he conquers Mecca, you see the conquest of Mecca in the 8th year. Imagine 13 years of being persecuted in Mecca, forced to leave your own hometown. And then you go to Medina to start anew, to start afresh with a different group of people. Some were Muhajir, some were Ansar. They didn't even leave you alone there. They still would come in the Battle of Badr, Uhud, Khandaq, come from Mecca all the way to Medina. Look at the geography of these battles. They're all near Medina or at Medina. They didn't leave him alone then. Finally, the Prophet of Islam, after all this animosity, after even making his uncle Hamza Shaheed, and even eating his liver, trying to eat his liver, he comes to Mecca, and now it's his chance. It's his chance for, you could say, revenge. The same people that harmed him, the same people that starved him. So this is 8th after Hijri. So this is about 20 years after, 21 years later. But then when he comes and he's powerful, and thousands of tens of thousands, 10,000 Muslimin come, there he mentions the chant. When they come in, he says, today, al-yawm yawmu marhama. Today is the day of mercy, and he frees everyone. He frees them. He doesn't take them, even though in the military strategy that they had, the military policy that they had then, they would take people as captives. But here he does not take anyone captives, generally, and he frees them. And those that are freed in the conquest of Mecca become named what? The Tulaqa, those that were freed. And actually they're the worst, because in the Muslimin they were not forced, but after being defeated they become Muslim. And you mentioning that Lady Zainab alayhi salam mentions the Islam, for example, of Yazid's grandfather Abu Sufyan, that he was someone that was freed. He was a slave that was freed. He could have been a slave, but he was freed. So the style of government, you see, of Rasulullah, the style of government of Ahlul Bayt is completely different. The style and what they even did, the way they attacked other nations, the way they would burn libraries and kill people. Look at the example, for example, in the hadith you have, أما علمت أن إمارة بني أمية كانت بالسيف والعسف والجور. Know that the government of Bani Umayyah is with the sword, is with oppression. But Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, wa inna imaratana, but our government, our style of governing the people is with rifq, companionship, being for friend. والتألف والوقار والتقية وحسن الخلطة والورع والاجتهاد. Know that it is with rifq, kindness, with ijtihad, with striving, actually working. It is not with dhulm and oppression. So therefore you see that the success of Rasulullah, the success of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, was in the fact that they will be able to capture and captivate the hearts of people. While the others, Umayyads and others that had claimed to be Muslim, they had the policy of the sword. Walid ibn Abdul Malik was a person that was going to be the successor of Abdul Malik, who was of the Umayyads, was a strong leader. But Walid had two problems, they say, in history. One was that his nose was always running. How is he going to be the Khalifa when he always has a runny nose? The second was he didn't understand Arabic grammar. He didn't like to study much. And for a Khalifa to be in Sham and to speak with the ulama and the scholars at that time, you have to know some balaghat, you have to know some nahu, ilmun nahu, some types of Arabic grammar. He didn't know. They put a crash course for him, 6 months. 6 months they put the best of the grammarians, and they say that he was worse than before after 6 months of intensive training. So then his father says, what am I going to do? How is he going to be my successor? His nose is always running and he doesn't speak well. He says, I know what to do. He says, do this. When I die, don't cry at all. Don't show emotion. When I die, don't cry. When anyone asks you a question and you want to talk, don't talk. The only thing that when they ask you, just put your hand by your sword. Put your hand by your sword. That's it. That's how you're going to rule the people. And that is the rule of the Mayyids, by sword. Not a person cannot even talk right. But you look at the lives of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, that they captivated the hearts of the people. You look at, for example, Thuban, how much he loved Rasulullah. You see the example of Muhammad ibn Muslim from Kufa, one of our great narrators of Imam Baqir, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad tu'ajjal farajahum. Thousands, tens of thousands hadith we have from Muhammad ibn Muslim. Great jurist, a great scholar, but a great lover. He loved Imam Baqir alayhi salam. It says in the story that one night in Kufa, he couldn't take it anymore. You know, Kufa to Medina is a long distance. You're talking about Iraq to Hijaz, a very long distance, possibly maybe close to 1,000 kilometers, probably even more. And he said, you know what, I have to see Imam Baqir alayhi salam. This is the love, this is the way that Imams with their akhlaq touch the hearts of people with their spirituality as compared to the Umayyads. This is how the family of Rasulullah treated the people. So Muhammad ibn Muslim says, I have to go. Usually when you start a journey, you don't start at night. Even today, we like to start at daytime, unless there's traffic or a Labor Day weekend or something like that. Then you would start at night. But usually you don't start at night, it's dangerous. Somebody could, harm you or something. So he starts at night. He says, I cannot take it anymore. I have to go to see Imam Baqir. He goes, and because of his intense love for the Imam, he travels possibly so fast that when he reaches Medina, a few miraculous things happen. One is Imam Baqir alayhi salam is already informed that he's there. He already is informed. He stays at a place because he becomes sick, he becomes ill from the journey. He wants to, in a way, feel better. He's too weak to even go visit the Imam. But the Imam already knows he's there and he sends him someone. He sends a servant for him. The servant tells him this, drink. He gives him a sharbat, a drink. He says, drink this and come and visit the Imam. And he's wondering, I feel sick. Us, when we feel sick, we have Theraflu, NyQuil, whatever. You don't feel good right away and go to work. It takes you a few days to feel better. So he's wondering, he says, okay, I'll take this sharbat from Imam Baqir alayhi salam. He takes this drink. Miraculously, immediately he's healed. Immediately. And he comes and visits the Imam. And this is a case of how much the companions of the Imams love the Imams. And then he sees the Imam finally rushing from Kufa all the way to Medina and asking him, after greeting the Imam, showing his love to the Imam, asking him, what was this drink? What about this drink that you gave me? Immediately I felt good. And the Imam mentions that this is a drink that we have. Part of one of the ingredients in it is the khak of Shafa, the khak of Shafa of Sayyid al-Shuhada. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And just to add to this, but he takes some, he says, well, give some to me so I can take for my family, take in Kufa. And he just throws it, in the pocket of the saddle. But the Imam mentions that this is not how you carry it. This is not how you carry it. There's a certain adab and a certain way to protect the effects of that khak shafa. So you see the love that Muhammad ibn Muslim, the love that followers of Ahlul Bayt had. Why? Because of the kindness of the Imams. Why? Because of the spirituality of the Imams. One time there was this sheikh, a sheikh that went and visited the city of Tehran. Back then, Tehran, those that moved the government of Tehran and made it the capital were the Qajars in the Persian Empire. But it was an Islamic Persian Empire. And sometimes these Qajars, even though they claimed to be the kings of a Shia country, some of them were not that religious. Actually, some of them were failures. They lost lots of property to the Russians at that time. But this one speaker comes and visits the Qajar king, and he runs out of money. That is why he wants to visit him. He says, I know that on this day, when you go to visit the king, if you give him a gift, then he's going to give you a large gift. He says, I ran out of money. I don't know who to ask. I'll go and give a gift to the king, and then the king will give me a large gift, and I'll be off my way. It'll be enough for me to stay, and then I'll go back to my city. So he thinks and says, what can I give a gift to the king? He says, okay, maybe I'll write a letter, the letter of Imam Ali alayhi salam to Malik Ashtar about government, how to truly govern people the way that Imam Ali does. I'll write this in a beautiful handwriting, and this will be my gift to the king. He comes and he says to the king that he has this gift. Many people that day are coming to get their gifts. Everyone is coming and receiving a large gift and leaving, giving a gift and receiving one and leaving. He shows his gift, but the king tells him, sit down. Sit down. He's wondering, more people come and leave, more people, the day is ending. The king, he wants to finally leave. He says, no, sit down. Shaykh Mutahari talks about this story. And then finally, when everyone leaves, the king very privately brings them close to himself. He says, why did you give me this letter? I apologize for saying this. I'm going to answer it. He says, the king, the Qajar king of Iran, he had such a materialist mindset that he didn't even understand Imam Ali, even though he's ruling a Shia country. He says, why did you give me this letter? In criticizing in a way, as if I've, criticizing Imam Ali alayhi salam, because he thought that in order for a king to be powerful, he should have the most amount of land, he should conquer the most. He says, why did you give me this letter? And the Shaykh answers him. He doesn't think about his gift anymore. Now it's Imam Ali alayhi salam. And he answers him in a way that puts this king in place. He says, king, the fact that you're saying, why did you give me the letter of Imam Ali if he wasn't successful, for example, in his kingdom? He says that Imam Ali alayhi salam was not looking for the lands of people. Imam Ali was looking at the hearts of people. And he was conquering the hearts. The fact that it's, say, 1,000 years after Ali alayhi salam, and you are the king of Iran, and you are still afraid to even criticize Imam Ali. And you're so afraid that you say everyone has to leave. And you have to very privately say this to me, shows that Imam Ali was successful and he conquered the hearts of people. So salawat ala Muhammad wa ala. Obviously, Rasulullah, Imams, their imarat was not an imarat just trying to gain as much land as they can. What is the purpose of land? They wanted to guide people, prepare them, so that those people willingly will be able to make others become guided and they could guide themselves. The Imam's example is the example of the Kaaba that Fatima alayhi salam says. Because they're asking, why did Imam Ali alayhi salam sit in the hadith? Why did he sit and not fight for his right? He said, Mathalul Imam ka Mathalul Kaaba. Yu'ta wa la ya'ti. The example of the Kaaba, or ta'ta wa la tu'ti. The example of the Kaaba is this. The example of the Imam is like the Kaaba. You go towards the Kaaba. You change yourselves and you become good, and then you do tawaf of the Kaaba. The Kaaba does not come towards you. You have to want Imam Ali alayhi salam. You have to be willing to fight for him, to love him, support him, so that he can establish his government, so therefore he can guide people. It's not that Imam Ali alayhi salam has to come towards you. You have to want Imam Ali in your life. This is the way you can say the Fatima answer. So you see that the government and the purpose of the Rasulullah in his rifq, in his compassion, was that so he could guide people so they can become courageous enough, they can want and understand, have ma'rifat enough for Islam to rule. But if he wanted to rule by force, if the Imams wanted to just rule by force, Imam Ali the first day was the champion of battle. He could have destroyed his enemies. But he wants them, God wants people to be able to willingly, voluntarily choose God themselves. And that is the same way with the zuhur of Imam Zaman. If God wanted to bring Imam Zaman right now and devastate all his enemies, with the wilayat that Imam Zaman has, with the wilayat takwiniyah, his authority over the world, it would be very easy for God to do this. He would have done it during Imam Ali's time with the wilayat that Imam Ali alayhi salam had. He is the Imam of ins and jinn. There's nothing for him to destroy his enemies. But God, this world is the world of tests, and it is a collective test, not an individual test. It is a collective test that we at one time will see government after government fail. And then the world will say, Ya Mahdi adrikni, we want you, Imam Mahdi. We want you. We want to have you govern us. Nobody else can govern us. Nobody else can be fair to us. Nobody else can establish ethics in society like you. Nobody can establish the belief in God and practice of God like you can. Nobody can establish kindness and fairness and eliminate poverty like you can. So you see, this is the strategy of Rasulullah, and we'll mention if we have time more, that this is one of the best ways to be a manager, the best ways to be a parent. Is one side is that kindness. The other part, my friends, my brothers, my sisters that are listening to me, is the firmness of Rasulullah. Was he so kind that everything was okay? I want this, Rasulullah, okay. I want this, Rasulullah, okay. When the Christians came to him and they asked him, allow for us, we'll become Muslim, just allow for us pork and alcohol. Maybe someone would say, okay, makes sense, okay, it's okay for you, just have pork and alcohol, but become Muslim. He said, no, he was firm. This is God's religion. This is God's religion. I cannot change part of God's religion for you. There are places in Islam at the same time that Rasulullah was very firm, and he made sure that there were red lines that were not passed. You see, for example, when it comes to the rights of the believers, when it comes to, for example, Imam Ali says, جَعَلَ اللَّهُ سُبْحَانَهُ حُقُوقَ عِبَادِهِ مُقَدَّمَةً لِحُقُوقِهِ فمن قام بحقوق عباد الله كان ذلك مؤديا إلى قيام بحقوق الله. One of the places that Rasulullah was very firm with the rights of the people, halal and haram, no one's rights to be usurped. These are places where the Prophet was very firm when it came to justice. And you see other examples in the life of Rasulullah, because we're running out of time, that when it came to halal and haram, that the Prophet of Islam would never, if we have these sayings, obviously, that I swear by Almighty God, that if they put the sun in my right hand and the moon in my left, and in return demand me to quit the propagation of Islam, I would never do this. When they asked him to stop your propagation of Islam, he was firm. So when you come and put these attributes together, my friends, what do you understand that how is the best strategy for us to take something home, to learn from Rasulullah? What is the best way for us to live our lives by following Rasulullah? He's an uswa for us. Tonight it is the night of his martyrdom, the night of his wafat. We learn that both qualities are needed in us. If you are a parent right now, if you are a manager, if you're leading anybody, do not forget these two qualities of kindness and at the same time firmness. I'm going to give you an example. In 1960s, there's in UC Berkeley, Diana Baumrind set up and researched the way that children were brought up. And she came to this conclusion that the parenting method of parents has a great impact on the behavior of the child, the parenting method. And she came up with 4 different types of parenting styles. And after that, others, based on this research that she did in the 1960s, elaborated and continued this theory that she had. She said one is a type of neglectful parenting. Parents that just don't care. That's not what we're talking about. Parent that just doesn't care about their children. Let them do whatever they want. They just neglect them. Sometimes they put that child in harm. Okay? Of course, Rasulullah, the Imams were not neglectful of their people. We believe that Imam Zaman is caring for us and that doesn't neglect us. The other way is a permissive, indulgent, she says, that parents Allow everything, whatever their kids want, they buy it for them. Whatever they want to go, please go. If they don't want to go to school today, it's okay. I'll call and I'll get you an excused absence. If you're late, I'll call again. Excused tardy, for example. All of this parenting is a permissive, everything is allowed. Okay? The other type is authoritarian, so strict and disciplinary that the child doesn't feel loved anymore, that the home is a military zone for them, as if they have to go like this, when they wake up. There's laws and regulations so much that the child isn't engaged in the house anymore, doesn't love their parents as much because there's too many laws. But she says the best type, the most successful type of parenting is authoritative. That with authority, you have authority, you have rules and regulations, you have a program for your child, but you do it with kindness. You do it with compassion. You show them, you explain to them. Kids sometimes, when you come, for example, to pick them up from school, if every time you pick them up from school, what happened today? What did you do in school? Did you study well? Did you talk I told you not to talk to this kid. Did you exercise well? Everything, right? Immediately when you pick them up from school, that kid is going to be interrogated every day. They're not going to like it. They're going to start having this love that love for their parents, even love for themselves. They're being interrogated every day at school, too much pressure. But at the same time, in a compassionate way, that you explain to them, look, child, I don't care about the grades of anybody else. I care about your grades because you're my son. You explain to them, because I love you, I'm asking you. Maybe necessarily you don't have to ask them right when they come from school. Later on, you open the conversation at the appropriate time. You say, okay, well, so what happened? Tell me something interesting today at school, as a friendly matter, in a compassionate manner. And then you set up those boundaries with grades. I check your grades at the same time. I check your attendance at the same time, but I do it the correct way. That child will be raised correctly. You will reach the potential that child has because of these two factors that we're learning from. The psychologist is learning, but Rasulullah did it 1400 years before. That we are the children of Rasulullah. He did parenting. He is our father. The narration says, tonight that we cry, we are crying for our father. The Prophet and Imam Ali are abawan hadhihi al-ummah. They're our father. So how was he a father to his companions, his friends? By his kindness to them. And at the same time, his firmness that Islam is a religion that has strict codes. When Islam says hijab, for example, is wajib, is strict. When, for example, Islam says there's no type of relationship allowed before marriage, for example, it is strict. And what happens if you're not firm, my friends? What happens if you're not firm? That is when society begins to become degraded, and that is when society falls, when those lines are broken. Imam Hussein alayhi salam came to do Islam, reform society, not that Islam had to be reformed. He didn't reform Islam. He reformed society. There are laws, there is a framework inside Islam that cannot be changed. For us, sometimes because we live in the modern era and we look at the laws of Islam, we can't understand it as well because we're living in a time period where we're very astray from the teachings of the prophets. Look at the way that people dress. Something was allowed 10 years ago, something 50 years ago was not allowed. Something 100 years ago was completely different than the way Americans and Westerners used to dress. If there is no strict line, no firmness, then there's no way to be able to reform society and change society anymore. Society, whatever they allow, that will become halal. So the problem is not with Islam. The problem is that society in the modern era has strayed so far from the teaching. This is where the problem is. Even in our food and our diet, doctors say this. Say whatever is from the old times is healthy and good for you. We're not even eating wholesome food. We're eating food from after the Industrial Revolution, where all we know, the farmers know, is quantity, not quality. Quantity of cows, for example, too many cows, and then they kill the cows, And then the cows have diseases. Why? Because they're all mixed into each other. They're not fed properly food. They're not pasture raised, for example. The same herbs we had, pesticides. This is all the struggle of modern man. There's no more wholesomeness in our food, in our diet, in our spiritual food. So therefore we are, alhamdulillah, are blessed that our religion has not been changed. That we have that firmness from the Imams, 250 years of continuation of Imamate to teach the rulings, to teach the hadith that Imam Baqir, Imam Sallallahu taught, so that today we know exactly where we should be. Yes, we can now say, okay, we're far from it, but we know where the threshold is. But if this threshold was gone and firmness was gone, then society would tumble and become degraded without knowing where it should be at the first place. So the problem, I ask my youth a lot of times, they ask questions about, for example, hijab, about an Islamic lifestyle. Know this, the problem is with our understanding of religion in the modern era. And this is the same understanding that a child that is Christian will have with Christianity, a Jew will have with Judaism, and a Muslim has with Islam, is because in the modern era, we are far away from the teachings of the prophets. And therefore, we need this firmness to be able to, inshallah, not be misguided and know where the threshold is, and therefore have people that will reform and lead society again so that we can go back and go to the path of the Anbiya, inshallah. Please recite salawat ala Muhammad, Ali Muhammad, wa ajil farajahum. May Allah help us, inshallah, so that we can become leaders, parents, and guides that are at the same time compassionate. We fulfill our duties with compassion, and at the same time we are firm and we lay down the rules where it is needed to be laid down. If we can dim the lights, this is one of the saddest nights for us as followers of Prophet Muhammad. Imam Hassan alayhi salam. If we can dim the lights, we'll talk about a little bit about Rasulullah's funeral. Right now, if you want to say condolences, imagine, take yourself 1400 years ago. Who would you say condolences to? One, you would say condolences to you, Ali ibn Abi Talib. How hard is it for you, Ali, at such a time that you lost Rasulullah? You followed Rasulullah, na'lan bin na'lan. Step by step, you followed Rasulullah as a child. Rasulullah eventually was your father and he raised you. You're with him this entire journey. You were the first Muslim, first supporter of Ali, Rasulullah. Rasulullah mentioned that this beautiful religion was protected by your sword, Ali alayhi salam. All the teachings that Rasulullah at the end of his life, he mentions, he opens up 1,000 doors of knowledge to Ali ibn Abi Talib. And each door opens up another 1,000 doors of knowledge to Ali alayhi salam. And that Ali alayhi salam becomes the door of the city of knowledge. Ali alayhi salam, we send our condolences to you, Mawla. Things are going to be much different after Rasulullah passes. Can you imagine the best of God's creation not having a funeral? Not having a funeral. A very limited funeral. Just as Ali alayhi salam washing and doing most of the body of Rasulullah. While the others in Saqifa at this time period are fighting over power. Very madloom, you know, the Ahl Bayt, all of them, they had the most mazloom funerals. They didn't have funerals. Rasulullah, you can say he didn't have. All of Medina should have been in that funeral. All of Arabia should have been there. It shouldn't just been Ali ibn Abi Talib. But at the same time, condolences to you, Lady Fatima. Fatima Zahra, condolences for your father. This is going to be a much different time for you, Fatima. You're the daughter, you're Bada'at al-Rasul. You're part of Rasulullah. We mentioned that every time Rasulullah, this narration is from Aisha and Tirmidhi. Every time Rasulullah would enter, he would stand up, kiss you, Fatima. Give you and stand up and give his own place to you. He would read the verse of Tathir, the purification verse, every day upon your house. إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. Every day upon this house. But Lady Fatima, what did they do to the same house after your father passed away? What did they do to the house of Ali and Fatima? These people that truly loved Rasulullah, they came with torches, setting the house of Fatima al-Zahra. Did anybody come to you in Medina and say condolences to you? You know, when they came and attacked your house and they broke your ribs, they came to you, Fatima Zahra alayhi salam, and they asked for you. They said, how did you sleep last night? This is in Hadith. How did you sleep last night? How does a person sleep with broken ribs? Do you know each time you inhale and exhale how much it hurts? What side of the body can you sleep? Do you sleep on the right side or on the left side? They ask, how were you? How did you sleep? She didn't mention once about my body, my bruises, my broken ribs. She didn't mention this. She says, I am sad, I am crying, I couldn't sleep for two reasons. Two reasons I couldn't sleep, not because of my body, not because of my muhsin that was aborted, not because of my child that was aborted, because of two reasons. One, faqdun nabi, that my father is not here anymore. How much must a daughter cry that had the best father in the world, was the best of creation, and now is missing? As we have in the narration in Tirmidhi, when Rasulullah, Aisha narrates in Sahih Tirmidhi, that when Rasulullah was dying in his illness, she whispers something in the ears of Fatima. And she begins to cry, and she whispers something and she smiles. What did you whisper? She was asked. She said that Rasulullah will pass away from his illness and I will cry. What made you smile? She said that Rasulullah said that you will be the first one to join me. So she says, two things I cry. One, Faghdun Nabi, I cry. And two, Dhulmul Wasi. What happened to the Wasi of Rasulullah? Ali, the champion of Khaybar, immediately after this, he is going to be dragged on the streets of Medina. The champion of Khaybar, you see, with his hands tied, they're taking him and forcing him, trying to make him do allegiance. A Jew at that time comes and becomes Muslim. So how did you become Muslim when Ali's hands are tied? He says, I knew him. He is the champion of Khaybar. I know what he is doing, and the patience that he has is for God. I know that he is a man of God. I know this religion is right, and he becomes Muslim. At that time period, finally, that Imam Ali alayhi salam mentions, how hard is it to bury Rasulullah? Ali alayhi salam, how alone are you going to be? Ali, what do you go through? Ali is awwal madlum now, is the most oppressed. Awwal Imam Hadi in the Ziyarat al-Ma'ali says, Assalamu alayki ya awwal madlum. Oh, first madlum. Imam Ali mentions in Nahj al-Balagha, oh Prophet of Allah, I love you more than I loved my parents. I loved you more than I loved my parents. Your death put an end to the prophethood, to revelation, and to the messengers from the world, while the death of other prophets had not resulted in this way. Your death caused a grief that every other grief was forgotten. The grief of your separation becomes common sorrow, and everybody felt it. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Ya Allah, we ask you, because of Rasulullah, because of the maqam of Mahmud, the praiseworthy station that Rasulullah has, grant us the shafa'at of Rasulullah. Grant us the shafa'at of Rasulullah in the dunya and the akhirat. Brothers, sisters, intercession is not only in the akhirat. Intercession of Rasulullah is right here. The fact that you're here for the Prophet of Islam, there has been intercession for you. Ya Allah, because of the dhulm of Imam Ali, in the struggle of Imam Ali alayhi salam, have all of our children have the wilayat of Ali ibn Abi Talib, inshallah. Ya Allah, allow us to be brave like Ali. Allow us to be complete like Ali alayhi salam. Allow us to love Imam Ali. Give us the ziyarat of Najaf, inshallah. Ya Allah, because of Lady Fatima and the dhulm that befell her, make us good Shia of Fatima, inshallah. Forgive our sins because of Lady Fatima alayhi salam. Ya Allah, we ask you because of the madhlumiyat of Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Give us, inshallah, the bravery of Imam Hassan, the courage of Imam Hussein, and the sincerity of Hassanain, inshallah. Ya Allah, all those that are sick right now, give them shifa because of these holy names. Ya Allah, all those that are poor and struggling, give them sustenance, inshallah. Allah, all of our marhumeen, those that sponsored tonight's program, give them, inshallah, the ability to be with Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam in the other world. Ya Allah, we ask you for us to not to be like those that cry for Imam Hussein, but kill Imam Hussein. We ask you to be sincere, loyal companions of Imam Zaman, and to allow our eyes to see his holy face, inshallah, and to be companions of him. For the ta'jeel and the advent of Imam Zaman, please recite salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Matam al-Hussein.
Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein. تیری زہرا پہ مصیبت کی گھڑی ہے ہائے بابا تیری زہرا پہ مصیبت کی گھڑی ہے کیسے دروازہ ہٹاؤں کیسے محسن کو بچاؤں سانس سینے میں رکی ہے تیری زہرا پہ مصیبت کی گھڑی ہے تیری امت نے بنا دی ہے یہ حالت بابا کوئی پسلی بھی نہیں میری سلامت بابا سانس لیتی ہوں میں جس دم رکنے لگتا ہے میرا دم صرف مرنے کی کمی ہے تیری زہرا پہ مصیبت کی گھڑی ہے ہائے بابا تیری زہرا پہ مصیبت کی گھڑی ہے یا حسین 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 یا پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے تربت بھی شکستہ ہے پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے تربت ہی شکستہ ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت ہی شکستہ ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت ہی شکستہ ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، بھی شکستہ ہے۔ کیا حال یہ امت نے، کیا حال یہ امت نے زہرا کا بنایا ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے۔ خاتون کوئی غم سے یوں چور نہیں دیکھی، ایسی کوئی دنیا میں مستور نہیں دیکھی، 18 برس میں ہی لگتی جو ضعیفہ ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے۔ دربار میں ظالم نے کی ایسی پذیرائی، کس طرح سے تو بی بی پھر لوٹ کے گھر آئی، بالوں کی سفیدی نے سب حال سنایا ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ 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 ہے۔ دو ایسے جنازے ہیں، دو ایسے جنازے ہیں، تاریکی میں جو اٹھے، بس گھر کے ہی لوگوں نے دونوں کو دیے کاندھے، ایک فاطمہ زہرا ہے، ایک بالی سکینہ ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت۔ مرہم تیرے زخموں کا بی بی نہ ملا اب تک، اولاد امیہ کی باقی ہے جفا اب تک، رونے پہ بھی پہرا تھا، تربت پہ بھی پہرا ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ 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 ہے۔ مہدی سے کوئی پوچھے کیا اس پہ گزرتی ہے، آواز بقیہ سے جب رونے کی آتی ہے، آنکھوں سے لہو رو کر وہ بھی یہی کہتا ہے، پہلو بھی
شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، شکستہ ہے، تصویر حقیقت کی خوابوں کو بنا دیجئے، اے بی بی تکلم کو تعبیر دکھا دیجئے، ماتم تیری تربت پہ ہوتے ہوئے دیکھا ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے۔ یا حسین، یا نبی یا نبی یا نبی یا نبی یا نبی یا نبی یا نبی، حیدر اٹھا رہے ہیں جنازہ رسول کا، 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 ماتم سرا بنا ہے مدینہ رسول کا، حیدر اٹھا رہے ہیں جنازہ رسول کا، حیدر اٹھا رہے ہیں جنازہ رسول کا، بے حال ہے رسول کی دختر حسینیوں، بے حال ہے رسول کی دختر حسینیوں، بے حال ہے رسول کی دختر حسینیوں، دو فاطمہ یتیم کو پرسا رسول کا، حیدر اٹھا رہے ہیں جنازہ رسول کا، حیدر اٹھا رہے ہیں جنازہ رسول کا، حیدر اٹھا رہے ہیں رسول کا، جاتے ہو چھوڑ کر ہمیں اے نہ جا کہاں، جاتے ہو چھوڑ کر ہمیں اے نہ جا کہاں، جاتے ہو چھوڑ کر ہمیں اے نہ جا کہاں، کہتا ہے رو کے چھوٹا نواسا رسول کا، حیدر اٹھا رہے ہیں جنازہ رسول کا، حیدر اٹھا رہے ہیں جنازہ رسول کا، ہے با محمد کی صدا ہے طرف بلند، ہے با محمد کی صدا ہے طرف بلند، ہے با محمد کی صدا ہے طرف بلند، رونا ہوا ہے قلب سے شہدا رسول کا، حیدر اٹھا رہے ہیں جنازہ رسول کا، حیدر اٹھا رہے ہیں جنازہ رسول کا، حیدر اٹھا رہے ہیں جنازہ رسول کا، سر کو جھکائے روتی ہے بابا کی سوگوار، سر کو جھکائے روتی ہے بابا کی سوگوار، سر کو جھکائے روتی ہے بابا کی سوگوار، زہرا کی موت ہو گئی مرنا رسول کا، حیدر اٹھا رہے ہیں جنازہ رسول کا، حیدر اٹھا رہے ہیں جنازہ رسول کا، حیدر اٹھا رہے ہیں جنازہ رسول کا، حیدر لٹا رہے ہیں لحد میں رسول کو، حیدر لٹا رہے ہیں لحد میں رسول کو، حیدر لٹا رہے ہیں لحد میں رسول کو، سر پیٹتا ہے قبر پہ کنبہ رسول کا، حیدر اٹھا رہے ہیں جنازہ رسول کا، حیدر اٹھا رہے ہیں جنازہ رسول کا، ماتم سرا بنا ہے مدینہ رسول کا، حیدر اٹھا رہے ہیں جنازہ رسول کا، حیدر اٹھا رہے ہیں جنازہ رسول کا، یا حسین 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 یا حسین.
توجه زيارة. السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا نبي الله، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين يا حاكم يوم الدين، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا أم المؤمنين يا خديجة الكبرى، السلام عليك يا أبا محمد حسن المجتبى، السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك، عليكم مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله لآخر لحد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين، خصوصا سيدي ومولاي أبو الفضل عباس ابن أبي المؤمنين. السلام عليك يا إمام زين العابدين، السلام عليك يا إمام محمد الباقر، السلام عليك يا إمام جعفر الصادق، السلام عليك يا إمام موسى الكاظم، السلام عليك يا إمام محمد التقي، السلام عليك يا إمام علي النقي، السلام عليك يا إمام يا حسن بن علي العسكري، السلام عليك يا إمام يا سيدنا مولانا يا صاحب العصر والزمان، سيدي الأمان 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 من فتنة الزمان والشيطان، عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله تعالى مخرجك وظهورك ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كل وليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا وذليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.